And welcome to the October 26th special meeting of the City Council. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I am not going to ask that anyone in the audience stand and identify themselves because there's no one in the audience. And
Somebody here. One counts.
oh, okay, yes, thank you. Councillor Fleming, would you please lead us in salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councillor Fleming.
Present.
Councillor Green. Councillor Hughes.
Here.
Councillor Schultz.
Here.
Councillor Squalia.
Present.
Councillor Van Hazinga.
Here.
Councillor Walsh.
Here.
President Zarella.
Here.
Councillor Boschman.
Present.
And Councillor Kuchar.
Here.
Councillor Di Natale.
Thank you. I will now read the warrant for the special meeting. Warrant for a special meeting of the City Council, Tuesday, October 26, 2021, 7 p.m., Fitchburg Legislative Building, 700 Main Street, Fitchburg, Mass. 01420. This meeting will be open to the public. Persons who wish to participate remotely in the public forum portion of the meeting may request a remote attendance meeting link by contacting the city clerk at cityclerk@fitchburgma.gov. The agenda will consist of 18721, an ordinance, Chapter 47-1A, ward boundaries. Boundary descriptions are hereby amended as follows in the enclosed ordinance. Per order, Anthony M. Zarella, City Council President. Mr. Hare, if you would like to present to the council.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Tonight, on behalf of the City of Fitchburg Re-Precincting team, composed of Amanda Alford, Ken DuPont, Ryan Killeen, Chris Parquette, Vinnie Pusateri, Tom Skorowski, former clerk Mary DiAlderetti, and myself, we are presenting to you tonight the updated 2021 ward and precinct maps. This group has held several meetings throughout the summer after being given direction from the state, and the result of those meetings are the maps before you tonight. The new proposed maps were drawn by the state and reviewed by this committee. There are very little changes, though there are some small ones due to Fitchburg's increased population size and projected and planned housing developments. There are changes, I believe, in every ward and precinct except for 3.
And 6A.
And 6A. Thank you, Councillor.
No, this changes.
Please note that these changes, if accepted, would not go in effect until December 31st, 2021, so after voting has ended this year. Yeah, I believe at this time you've all seen the maps and had the ward precincts, the street by street narrative in front of you. So if you have any questions at this time, we'd be prepared to answer them.
Councillor Squalia?
So I had one question from the residents of Bridal Cross condominiums on Caspian Way that, this was previously in 2011, a portion of Caspian Way, the odd numbers are in Ward 6, and the rest of the residents of Bridal Cross are in Ward 3A. It looks like there's a reason that was done because there are many residents on that side of the road, but maybe if you could just talk about why they're split up like that.
Sure. So I'm not sure I have the specific on Caspian Way. Again, the state did go through this based on population growth, where available housing stock was and where any future developments could be going in, any pre-planned developments such as Harper Furniture Building. And so that could have had to do with that. But I could check in specifically about why Caspian Way was split. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Yeah, of course.
So the clerk has brought to us a document prepared by Secretary Galvin's office, which is a very detailed analysis of our population and certain demographic information, broken down by blocks and neighborhoods. And that was the primary basis of devising any changes in boundary lines for precincts. It is obviously an involved document. There are several pages, but this document is summarized on this map over here, explaining the variances and the difference in the population change in the city of Fitchburg. And obviously, keeping in conformity with the 4,000 population. So that would be the primary basis of any decision-making that happened in connection with re-precincting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Kuchar?
Now, if I heard you correctly, you said there was no change in Ward 3, is that correct? Because I see I do see a change if you go up around Prospect Street and Nickel Street. It looks like it's growing, 4B is growing into Ward 3 just a tiny bit, or am I reading the map incorrectly?
No, that is correct, Counselor. My apologies. I was misreading it earlier today when I was looking at it.
Okay, all right. No, I just wanted to make sure, and I would assume that that is because there's been such growth up on McIntyre and Williams and up in the northern part of 3B.
Yeah. So I should just clarify, the reason that we do have two maps in front of you all today, they are the same map. This map does have the current outline, so you can see in the dark black where the actual changes are. That map does help break it down by those population changes a little bit as well that the solicitor was just talking about.
The lines are very helpful, I just have to add.
I see Councilor Rochman. Just to clarify, to make sure I'm reading the map correctly, it looks like actually Ward 3 is expanding into what formerly was Wards 2B and 4B in those respective areas. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I am reading it backwards.
Okay, yeah.
That's why I raised the issue. Councilor Brochman.
Oh, may I ask you a question, why none of the councils were invited to these meetings that you had during the summer?
So, Counselor, we were given direction by the state, which asked us to review these documents, and because we didn't have any changes based off of what the state was recommending, we thought it best just to bring to the council as the state was recommending.
Okay. I just want to say one thing. I noticed that I lost some Rosedale Street to Ward 1, so I just wanted to let Ward 1 know that my clients or my representatives that I represent, these people were crying to me because they wanted to stay with me. And I said, you're a good candidate and you're a good counselor and you would take good care of them. So I just want you to know that. All right? So that's a plug for you.
Yeah, and
Councilor Squalia?
on that note, it looks like, on the east side of Prospect and the west side of Mechanic Street, they will no longer be in Councilor Kuchar. They would be in Councilor Van Huizenga's ward, in Ward 4. That looks like kind of one of the more significant changes. That and the west, and Day Street, what is it, the east side of Day Street and the west side of, what is that, Snow Street? Would be all in Ward 4 now, so they would vote at the senior center.
It looks like just the west side of Day Street, not Snow.
Or the east side of Day Street, you mean?
No, the west side. The line is currently Blossom.
The line is currently Blossom. Oh, okay, that's Day, yeah, it's too small, it's hard to read here. Yes, okay, so just the west side of Day Street?
If I could, the map is difficult. I will grant you all that. So one of the things that we've included and that the state's included is kind of that breakdown of all of the streets. It's, head west on Main Street and then east on wherever else. So that's a very helpful narrative to go through. So if you have any particular questions about which street and which side of the street, or your constituents do, I would refer you to that narrative over the maps, as they're just a little harder to read.
I have Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, I just had a question about what was the criteria that the state used to adjust the wards? Is it just population density?
Yeah.
Nothing other than that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I think, I think the state has tried to, I can't speak for their process, but I think they've tried to take an impartial view at this, and just looked at it by population numbers and increase and decreases.
So they weren't looking at party affiliation or anything like that, like they do now?
Not that I'm aware of, Counselor. They very well, we weren't part of that process.
Okay.
I have Counselor Van Hazinga.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sure there's actually a lot of factors that go into making these decisions beyond just population density, because I know that they have to be careful not to marginalize any specific groups within the city. But I think for the most part, the lines match what we have now in their intent. There's a few shifts here and there, and I think we could quibble about some of those little lines, but I think it all makes sense. And I know it's just one factor, but looking at the total population, it has to be within, 5% of that target. I am a little curious, and I don't know if you have the answer or not, why they moved that section of west of Rollstone to Ward 1 when Ward 1's one of the most populous wards in the city, and to take it away from Ward 2, which has a much lower population. So I don't know if you have that answer. It's just a curiosity on my part.
I don't have the answer off the top of my head, Counselor. I'm not sure if that was an increase. As you said, there were a couple other factors, I guess, other than population that went into this. I don't know if that was part of the decision-making. I'm also not sure if there's a future development project that may be in the works there that shifted their thinking. But it may have more just had to do with some of the metadata that the state looks at.
Okay.
And looking at age and families within a district, they might be projecting out, not just looking at what is there today.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my only other concern is that, after these changes go into place, I hope there's a good system in place to let voters know if their wards are changing. And because I know my wife works as an election worker, and she's already mentioned things, okay, well, what happens when people show up to vote and it turns out they're in the wrong ward and they get to send them across the city. So I hope that we do some mailings and some outreach to the residents to let them know.
Yeah, I was speaking with Clerk Alford earlier today, who was in touch with the state, and there will be a coordinated effort to make sure that everyone's informed. We'll get a list, I assume using this breakdown, of all of the residents, and we'll be mailing them out change of location forms and wards and all of that information that they need to accurately vote at the next election.
Great, thank you very much.
Of course.
Before I move on to the next counselor, following up on that, are we planning on sending out these change forms once shortly after the change is made and then again as the election draws closer?
Well, I can answer that. At this point, it's one mailing. It'll be mailing after the changes has occurred. But they can always, any voter can always go to the Secretary of State's website to find out where their polling location is, if they have any questions.
All right. Thank you. Next up, I have Counselor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions. One being, I think I heard you say that we had no say in the state's decision in terms of the changes that were made, correct?
I should clarify those comments. We did not alter the map that the state gave us. The state did do a first pass on that, and we thought it was acceptable given the population variances and all the other factors that go into making it Fitchburg. If we had wanted to make changes or if the council or constituents want to make changes, that is something that could have been done as part of this process, that can still be done as part of this process. But we felt as the committee it was good to bring to council as was presented.
Okay, and the second part is in terms of the changes that go into effect, they don't affect this election, am I correct? So then we don't need to notify anyone that voting spaces have been changed during this election?
Correct. And I would, clarify to anyone that does ask you about this process to reinforce that statement that it does not affect this election cycle.
Okay.
It will not affect their polling places, their eligibility to vote. It will go into effect after this election cycle.
Awesome. Thank you.
In fact, we won't even be putting this through its second reading, assuming it gets passed tonight. It will not go through its second reading and third reading until after the election. Next up, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you just confirm my understanding that each precinct has to be within I think, is it 5% of all of the other precincts in terms of, and it's population that's being considered, not registered voters? Correct. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brochman speaking for the second time.
Yeah, I was going to reaffirm what Andy said about to make sure that we let the voters know, and not a year ahead, like just before the next time they vote, because I noticed that last time, there was a big, especially in Ward 3, there was a big mix-up where they were voting. That's my biggest concern. And one other question, too. If I lived on Rosestone Street, and I want to stay with Councilor Boishman, can I come to the city and say I want to stay in Ward 2?
Counselor, any constituent that would request to remain where they're currently located, whether or not it was because their council representation was incredible, the constituent could come and make that case, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Fleming.
Hey, the only complaint I get, and it's not even in my ward, is that people have to drive past through two polling locations to get to their polling location, which is sort of inconvenient, especially when you're elderly and you've been used to going to a certain location. This happened the last time the boundaries changed, and it's not convenient sometimes where we had to move the voting to Rollstone. We made it convenient. I mean, some of these people are going past Ward 3, going past the Memorial, going past Knights of Columbus, then going to St. Bernard's to vote. So it is inconvenient, some of these changes, especially for the elderly. I just want that noted.
No, thank you, Counselor. That is a good reminder to us that these processes are never quite perfect. While I do think that there are a couple residents that will pick up a closer polling location, there will certainly be some that will have to go a little bit further. However, I think with the availability of voting eligibility, the different options that are out there in terms of absentee ballots and early voting and things like that, hopefully those help alleviate some of those concerns, but I understand, and by no means will this be perfect for every resident of Fitchburg.
Yeah, I think the complaints are more people who actually like to go and vote, not do the bail-in. Their duty is to go vote on election day. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just also note that as much as it would be ideal for everyone to go to whatever polling location is closest to them, pathing is actually a very difficult thing to calculate, especially when you've got very irregularly shaped wards that aren't all equidistant from any point in the city. So it would be nearly impossible to make sure that every person in every ward doesn't have a polling place closer to them than the one they're supposed to go to. It is inconvenient. I know my parents have to go past the Knights to get to where they're headed, but there's little we can do sometimes. That said, Councillor Kuchar, second time.
I'm all set.
All set?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve. Anyone speaking on the motion? All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fleming.
Yes.
Counselor Hughes.
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Squalia.
Aye.
Counselor Van Hazinga.
Yes.
Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
President Zarella.
Yes.
Counselor Boishman.
Yes.
Counselor Kuchar.
Yes.
That is unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and second to adjourn. If there is no objection, we are adjourned.